And we're back here at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, Illinois, at the United Center. And Alexis McGill Johnson, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood Action Fund, joins us. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Will.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Planned Parenthood, we know that women's issues and women's rights are huge. I'm going to throw it to you and let you take it.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, women's rights are huge. Reproductive freedom is on the ballot, and it has been very intensively, obviously, since the Dobbs decision, when the Supreme Court overturned almost 50 years of our ability to have a constitutional right to protect our own bodies, right, to make decisions about our own bodies. And over the last couple of years, what we have seen is that every time reproductive freedom has been on the ballot, we win. We have won in states like Ohio and Kansas and Kentucky and Montana and California. And I think what is so important about that right now is that we have the opportunity in this moment to elect Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz to the White House. And why that excites us at Planned Parenthood Action Fund, our endorsement of them, is because they would be the most pro-reproductive freedom ticket we have ever seen. The Vice President and I have traveled all across the country over the last couple of years in her official capacity, really trying to get an understanding of what's happening in our bodies, right? 22 states have banned access to abortion. Over almost half of all women have lost access in their state, but over half of all black women have lost access. And we know that, these bans don't stop people from seeking access to health care. What they do is they put more burdens on us. They make us more kind of at risk for criminalization, right? We're crossing state lines and going to great lengths and traveling. And they really increasing and exacerbating the maternal health crisis because these bans have made pregnancy more dangerous. So I know there's a lot to throw in there, but it's really like I am both devastated by the public health crisis that we are experiencing and leading through right now, and also so hopeful about what could possibly happen.
I've always found the narrative of this debate to be very interesting because on the conservative side, they love to describe this simply as an issue of abortion, when in fact the issue is much broader than that. It's much deeper and much more significant than that. It's about women's health.
Yes.
And it's about a woman's ability to control her body. I've always said if you're against abortion, it's very simple. Don't have
Exactly.
one. But also then there's another element in this in terms of Christian nationalism.
Yes.
And how that whole ideology has made its way into our politics.
Yeah, I mean, look, abortion bans are not about stopping abortion, right? I mean, abortion is healthcare, as you just said. They are about power and control. And I think one of the most interesting things that we've seen over the last couple of years is how abortion bans have kind of come into full circle conversation around our rights and our democracy, right? Because we're talking about freedoms. So many countries around the globe are, there are more countries around the globe that are descending into fascism and authoritarianism than actually into democracies. The first thing you do when you are, trying to consolidate control of our government institutions and align them with a Christian nationalist fundamentalist ideology is you institute an abortion ban, right? Because that controls.
What's the link?
It controls half of the population, right? So immediately you have started to build a system where half of the population is going to be saddled and not be able to fight back the regime. You also are going to, take away our access, repress our right to vote, so we don't have a say, not in what happens to our bodies, but also what happens in our democracies. So it's not an accident when you see, if you remember a couple of years ago, actually right before the Dobbs decision, there was a law in Texas called SB 8, which was Roe was still the law of the land. And SB 8 was essentially a law that said you could not access abortion in Texas after 6 weeks. And if people found out that you did, they would sue anybody around you, and they could get a $10,000 bounty if they were able to prove it, right? So they put a bounty on our bodies, right? Before Roe was even overturned. Now, that was SB8. SB1 was gutting voting in Texas, right? Repressing and suppressing the vote, which obviously would impact both of those, impacted our community significantly. But there's such an important linkage that I think we have to understand. And I think that's why we are seeing the energy now, right, coming from the Dobbs decision, because people understand it's not just about abortion and healthcare.
Right.
It is about our fundamental ability to live free lives.
It's about your fundamental ability to live free lives. So what is your takeaway now with the energy that you're feeling in this space? Because a couple weeks ago, if this event had been held a couple of weeks ago, the energy level wouldn't have been quite the same. And how do you carry that energy forward?
Yeah. So, I mean, reproductive freedom has actually been the driving energy force throughout this cycle, right? Since the Dobbs decision came down in 2022, people were predicting a red wave. They were predicting a massive loss in the House. And what happened? We held so many more seats because people were outraged. They were energized, knowing that they could express themselves politically, not just in midterm races, but in 7 ballot initiatives across the country. You could not get those wins without bringing together a coalition that is across party, that is across generation, that is across race, right? And I think, and gender.
Right.
And so I think what was powerful is watching that realignment. So even as the ticket has changed, the energy and excitement and the joy of just, Kamala Harris being who she is and us getting to see her step in so fully and quite frankly flawlessly into this campaign. It has always been the case that abortion was on the ballot because this is the first presidential election since the Dobbs decision. Now we have someone who has been the party standard bearer, right? As the one who has been traveling around the country, meeting with patients, meeting with providers, meeting with lawmakers, trying to get a full, understanding of the issue. And so I think that's the energy, and I think the alignment. It's like it's a perfect moment.
So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to look into camera 3, and I'm going to ask you to explain to the audience what are the 3 salient issues that you see and why?
The 3 salient issues: reproductive freedom, democracy, and electing Harris-Walz in 2024.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate your time, appreciate your work, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
Look forward to it.
Folks, you are tuned here into Politics in Color. Politics in Color is where you are. We are live at the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, Illinois. There's a whole lot more. Stay tuned.